Okay, so we'll start tonight's meeting. Welcome everyone to the Spring Council meeting and budget setting for the forthcoming year. First of all, are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have apologies for four of our members, Councillor Judith Couch, Hannah Crosby, Stephanie Kerry, who's been very serious in hospital, but I understand she's improving well. She's had a daughter and had to have complications during that period. And finally, I do hope that we could send our wishes to Halima, because Halima is stuck in the Middle East, can't get a plane out to get back here in time, and she's been out there several days, and so she's no idea when they can get a flight back here at all. So I'm sure we all sympathise with Halima. It's a very fraught time to be stuck in that situation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Carr.
Yes, apologies from Councillor Barbara Carr, who's incapacitated having had an operation last week.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think that's everyone, is it? Yeah, lovely. Okay. Right, we'll now move on to the next agenda item, which is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, that's good. So in that case, we'll move on to item 3, which is the minutes. Council is asked to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of December 2025, 2nd of January 2026 and 28th of January 2026. And will you note an amended version of the meeting held on 28th of January, which has been handed round to show those that gave apologies. So do we have a proposer? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to propose the minutes as a true correct record, but I'd also like to convey my very best wishes to Stephanie Kerry, and if you pass on the best wishes of myself, the members of our group, and I'm sure all members of the council, for a full and speedy recovery. And also, if you are in contact with Halima, please send our best wishes to Halima, and I hope there's a resolution as soon as possible. If you can do that, I'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can I see all those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions?
Abstention for the December one. I wasn't here, was it?
Thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you. Got that. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. Right. Right. Mayor's announcements. Okay. So as I said, welcome everyone to our Spring Council meeting and budget setting for the forthcoming year. I can hardly believe that this will be my last complete meeting as Mayor before I hand over the reins to Councillor Barbara Carr in May. I know that she's currently recovering after a foot operation, and I'm sure you will all join me in wishing her a speedy recovery. Also, I would like to welcome Councillor Ken Woodhead back to the Council Chamber as he continues to recover from his operation. Ken's asked me on his behalf to pass on thanks to everybody for all the support that he's received as well. It's very much appreciated, isn't it, Ken? Also, as already been said, we'd like to wish Councillor Halima Khalid a speedy and safe return from the Middle East, where she's stranded, and we'd also like to congratulations to Councillor Kerry, and hope that makes a speedy recovery as well. I'd like to talk about some of the events I've attended this year. First mention one that unfortunately could not go ahead. I was very disappointed that the Holocaust Memorial had to be cancelled due to very heavy rain and high winds. This was the first time the event has had to be cancelled, and in future a backup plan at an alternative indoor venue will be in place. I've also had recently had the pleasure of visiting the Holodomor commemoration exhibition, which was a sombre experience reflecting on the man-made famine which killed up to 12 million people in Ukraine in the early 1930s. I've also hosted my penultimate thank you tea party of my mayoral year in Stapleford. These are always a fantastic event to give something back to those volunteers across the borough who give so much to support local communities. These events always make me really proud of the people of Broxtowe. Let me find the things. So it was also a pleasure to be able to recognise the outstanding service and dedication to the borough by 4 very deserving citizens at the special meeting held to appoint 4 new freemen of the borough, which is the highest honour that the borough can bestow on its citizens, and was very well deserved. We presented a cheque. Me and my wife went to the wellness walking group and presented a cheque and joined in with them on their walk. Fortunately, it was the first day this year that it didn't rain. It was a lovely sunny day, so that was good. Along with a few other councillors, we attended a gala dinner last week at Chetwynd Barracks, which was in aid of Broxtowe Women's Project. That was a fantastic evening, and unfortunately there were lots of people there with deeper pockets and longer arms than me, and over £10,000 was raised. That was a very successful evening. Also, it was good to attend the opening of the ramp at Bennerley, and we had a bracing walk over the viaduct, and hopefully the visitor centre will be opened by Easter. I look forward to that. One event that deserves a special mention is the first Broxtowe Youth Conference, which was held at Beeston Youth and Community Centre. Young people from schools across the borough attended, and our youth mayor, Toby Goldsmith, did a fantastic job of co-hosting the event along with Archie, who was the Nottinghamshire Young Person of the Year. So well done to Toby for the way he hosted that event. It was brilliant, wasn't it? The aim of the event was to seek the views of young people so that council services can better meet their needs. And thanks should go to our staff for arranging the event, the staff in our communities team, and also to councillors Richard McRae and Teresa Cullen. I think it was a fantastic event, and I hope it will be repeated next year. And finally, I would like to remind councillors that it is the Broxtowe Voluntary Awards on Friday next week. This is an opportunity for councillors to recognise the outstanding contribution made by volunteers to the borough of Broxtowe. So it would be good to see as many councillors as possible at the event. The event is free and tickets are still available, but the civic team will need to know names and numbers by the end of this week. So hopefully we'll see a few more of you there. So that concludes the announcements bit. Right, so we'll move on to
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask what this is that we've been handed?
Which one's that? Sorry, if I'm...
Mr. Ward has just handed one of these to everybody.
Oh,
Motion
yeah.
for urgent business.
There's a motion for urgent business for us to consider later.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I have to object. We asked for exactly the same motion to come to this committee, and we were told that we couldn't put forward this motion. So what has changed?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that being. I'm not aware of that motion being requested.
The item is on the, it's the last item on the agenda. It can be something that can be addressed when we talk about it.
Yeah,
Can we hear the response, please, Mr. Mayor, the explanation?
yeah. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to that item on the agenda. I think is the
Yeah,
is
so
the answer to
urgent
that.
item, if I may, through
Yeah.
your mayor, is the last item on the agenda. So I propose if there is any discussion about that particular item, that we have it at that point.
Okay. So are you happy we'll raise that when we get to that point in the agenda, and we'll decide whether it's qualifies as urgent business and act accordingly. Okay.
But I don't object to the content of it. I just can't understand why we were told, no, you can't do that, and that it's here tonight.
Well, I must have, I wasn't aware of that request being made. So I'd need to ask.
Again, through you, Mayor, if I may, again, I've just checked with Democratic Services to see if they're aware of that motion. I'm not aware of it. Jeremy's not aware of it, and I don't know if our Chief
I
Executive
know
is.
Councillor Carl's just had an operation, but she does know what she's doing, and she did raise this subject with officers as to whether we could do this, and she was told no.
Well, as I say, that's
If
not
it's a
something
mistake,
that we
then
can
it's a
comment
mistake,
on
but
having received.
You know, we need that. I need to be told that it's a mistake out of this meeting, because quite frankly, allowing one group to do it and not another is not a good look.
That can be looked into
Yeah,
later.
we'll
but
have
we
to look
the
at that
items
later
that
if we
are-
can deal with the rest of the agenda first. But I must say, I'm not aware of that request having been made. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've commented, we've not seen
Yeah.
it. We've got it on the
No.
website, and we'll
Yeah.
just deal with it. Then if there's got to be a response after, we can deliver that later.
Yeah, okay, as I say, I'm not aware of that request having been made, so we will proceed with the rest of the agenda. So we will now consider item 5, which is pay award and review of allowances. So do we have a proposer? Councillor Radulovic?
Mr Mayor, the recommendation is a recommendation from the Independent Remuneration Panel. It comes in two forms. Starting on page 19, and I'll formally move.
Thank you. And do you have a second it?
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak? Yeah, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I'll be a bit more conciliatory now. I agree with this, and for a very, very important reason of something that's happened this morning. Councillor Cullen very, very kindly stood in for me at the Governance Committee at County Hall this morning, as obviously I had to take Barbara to have the dressings done and everything. And on the agenda was several items of changes to the Constitution. One of them that councillors will now only be able to speak for 3 minutes and not 10. And another one was supplementary questions can now only be submitted in writing and will be answered in writing. And quite rightly, Councillor Cullen queried, was this to actually help the reform portfolio holders, because quite frankly, when they are asked a supplementary question, they don't know the answer to the question. But also, there's actually a portfolio holder on the committee, which I think is a strange thing anyway, who said that he wasn't bothered about politics. He was a member of the public, and he was fed up of being asked questions that he doesn't know the answer to, and it's embarrassing, and that's why they brought it in. Now, they're paid about £35,000 to do more than that, to do that job. And we're asking here for £600 plus 3% because we are the worst paid councillors in the county. I think the job that we do, all parties do as councillors, is worth being paid something nearer to the national living wage. It's still not the national living wage. So I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Does anybody else wish to speak? No? Oh, okay. So, Councillor Radulovic, would you like to sum up, please?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to thank Councillor Carr and Councillor Cullen for this morning's event, shall we say, at County Hall. What a fiasco. Now apparently Reform don't even compare themselves to a political party anymore. Well, I'm sorry, but wait, they stood on a political platform and are remunerated accordingly. So I would hope that in future, Steve, you can make them earn their money, even if you've now only got 3 minutes to do it per of you.
I am trying to source some turquoise sticky tape to put over our mouths at the next meeting.
You've wonderful. But Mr Mayor, the recommendation has been moved and seconded as the lowest paid leader in Nottinghamshire. I'm delighted to be able to support this and continue being the lowest paid leader of a council in Nottinghamshire.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
You've got to have a
Councillor
sense of
Radulovic. So we'll take this to the vote in two parts. So part one is an increase of £600 to be
I've moved
applied
them
to the
both together.
basic allowance. So can I see all
Chair,
those?
Mr Mayor, I moved them both together.
Oh, did you?
And it was seconded.
On the
Okay.
second.
In that case, we'll take them both together. So the part one is an increase of £600 to be applied to the basic allowance, and part two, that members' allowances be increased by 3% for 2026-27. So I can see all those in favour. Okay. Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? Yeah, okay, thank you. The item is carried. So, we'll now consider the pay policy statement 26-27. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Radulovic?
Mr Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to present to you tonight the pay policy review to council set out on front pages 23. There's nothing I wish to add to the report, Mr Mayor. This is a nationally negotiated conditions of service, and we'll be delighted to implement in full, as always, the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Radulovic, do we have a second there?
I second that.
Thank you. So would anybody else like to speak? No, not looking like anybody wants to speak. Okay, then, Councillor Radulovic, would you like to sum up? No. Thank you. In that case, we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour, can I see a show of hands? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No, the item's carried. Unanimous, yeah. So, you should have a sheet on with your papers of item 7, which is appointments to committees and working groups. The suggested appointments have been handed round. Do we have a proposer and second it? Councillor Radulovic?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, the agenda item 7 has been set out before you tonight. There are just 3 recommendations on there. I recommend to council that they be accepted.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder?
I second that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Unfortunately, I didn't get the Liberal Democrat recommendation to Jeremy in time. May we add Councillor Hannah Land as a substitute to the Chief Officer's Employment Committee, please?
Okay. You're making that a proposal? Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay. So would anybody else like to speak? No. In that case, Councillor Radulovic, would you like to sum up?
No, it won't be a question summing up, Mr Mayor. Just be saying we accept the nomination as put forward, and therefore it will form an amended recommendation, and I'll now formally move the amended recommendation to include Hannah Land as the Chief Officer's Employment Panel.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the vote then. So can I see all those in favour of the amended recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? No, that's unanimous again. Thank you. So the item's carried. So we'll go to item number 9, the budget.
8.
Oh, sorry, item 8. It says number 9 there. 8. Yeah, item 8, the budget. So before we move on to the budget, I would like to remind members that in accordance with Local Authorities Regulations 2014, any votes on this item will be recorded. So do we have a proposer for the budget?
Well, I'll be proposing.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify, Chair? Was that a proposer for the recorded nature of the vote, or for the item itself?
No, just for the item itself. For the item itself, no.
Well, I propose it then, Mr. Mayor. And I did see everyone was getting excited that we were whizzing through the agenda, and indeed, when you said it, we're on to item 9. I even saw Councillor Owen think he was getting an early night, but unfortunately, you might have to hold your horses for a bit, and I hope to be able to deliver you a full and comprehensive speech in support of the in support of the budget. Mr Mayor and honoured guest, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to present to you tonight the Broxtowe Borough Council 2026-27 budget. I want to start off by offering my sincerest thanks and gratitude to all the employees, residents and businesses who've supported our borough during ongoing challenging economic climate. And as always, we've seen the best of Broxtowe. Just at this point, I'd like to extend that gratitude to other public sector colleagues in the NHS, police, the ambulance, the fire service and all emergency responders as well who provide services to our communities. But in terms of the actual budget itself, obviously there remains a serious economic context for all authorities providing local government services. And following the outcome of the Fair Funding Review, the Government has agreed to provide 35 councils with support of up to 1.9 billion in 26-27 to manage financial pressures via the exceptional financial support process. I think we can all agree, though, that this is no longer exceptional, and it also fails to provide sustainable financial support, instead forcing councils to borrow or sell assets to maintain statutory services. And rather than resolve the crisis, EFS is a short-term measure that leaves many councils with potentially more long-term debt. I'm pleased to report, though, that Broxtowe Borough Council isn't in that position, and that the hard work of our officers and members ensures that we're not on that list. It manages our finances judiciously, and while still delivering an ambitious corporate plan, it achieves this without any reductions to our services, or indeed cuts to jobs. This will be yet another year of a no cuts to jobs and services budget. We're incredibly proud of that. Next year's budget will focus on a diverse programme of continued investment in Broxtowe's town centres, economic regeneration, housing, parks and environment. And we're proud of our development and investment strategy across these areas, which continue to support our financial sustainability and, importantly, improve the quality of our residents' and tenants' lives. This budget is a joint endeavour, and in preparing this, I'm really pleased to have been able to say I've been ably assisted and supported by Councillor Milan Radulovic, Leader of the Council, the Interim Deputy Chief Executive and Section 151 Officer, all other officers and heads of service and their departments, fellow councillors of the Broxtowe Alliance Group and members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Members will know that the funding of our council services is reliant on income from council tax, business rates and fees and charges, as well as increased and sustained commercial activity. The latest government finance settlement reflects that the outcome of the long-awaited Fair Funding Review, which has sought to redistribute funding with a stronger link to levels of deprivation and population, will of course be applied across Broxtowe. The Fair Funding Review has seen the baseline for business rates being fully reset, although transitional arrangements offer some protection, at least in the short term. Business rates income, which helps the council to fund its core services, is now aligned with government expectations, with limited potential for any immediate growth in funds. Given the impact of the full reset, the Nottinghamshire Business Rates Pool, and we've talked about this previously at recent cabinet meetings, which has been so beneficial to district councils, has been disbanded, with the anticipated risks of pooling now significantly outweighing the benefits. It was another challenging settlement for districts, with the redistribution of funds being prioritised towards those authorities with social care responsibilities, giving health and social care service demands. Although councils will receive some income protection, core spending power in cash terms in 2026-27, there will almost certainly be a real terms cut when measured against inflation. Several grants have been consolidated into the latest finance settlement, including the earmarked homelessness, rough sleeping and domestic abuse grant. The previous New Homes bonus, which saw Broxtowe receive £360,000 in 25-26, has been scrapped. There was a late shock with significant change in the final finance settlement relating to revised assumptions about the level of business rates pooling included in the new baseline. And the significant net difference of nearly £740,000 for Broxtowe has rightly been protected in 2026-27 by a one-off adjustment support grant. There is no indication at this stage whether this protection will continue into future years, and it leaves some uncertainty despite the indicative 3-year settlement. The administration is proposing a small below inflation increase in Broxtow's element on council tax, which would see 2.94% annual increase from £192.93 in 25-26 to £198.61 in 26-27. This is the same increase in percentage level as last year at 2.94%, and for a Bandy equivalent property we expect that to be, as just said, about £6 increase. Mr Mayor, tonight we will highlight how this very modest increase will support vital local services, provide value for money, build up our tax base, and importantly continue to support our economic, community and health priorities. We are also recommending that a 4.8% increase in housing rents is proposed in line with government guidance, which is CPI plus 1%, coupled with a freeze on garage rents and on service charges so that more money can be invested back into our housing stock with the exciting new build affordable programme and other housing related services. And if you remember, of course, there was during 2016 to 2020 4 years of 1% rent cuts applied by Broxtow, which has cost the housing revenue account of this authority approximately £4.8 million in that time, which is £4.8 million less worth of housing improvements, and indeed the net impact of that is about £6.8 million in total if that had been applied and compounded over those years. Members will have seen this year's budget consultation where pleasingly we received, and I know Councillor Owen's particularly pleased when he sees over 1,000 residents providing valued feedback. Our services received increased levels of resident satisfaction, where they were increased levels of satisfied or very satisfied in the area where they live, and increased levels of satisfaction in the way that the council delivers its services as well. This administration continues to pursue an ambitious housing recovery strategy, including sustainable investment and growth, and we will continue to provide significant capital investment in our existing housing stock, which will be almost £40 million over 3 years. We continue to progress on the delivery of our new house building programme and plan, and have again been successful in securing significant grants from Homes England to support these plans. Our new builds that we have recently taken delivery of, including the absolutely brilliant new builds at Hemlock Gate scheme, where we've had 51 new homes committed to, has been incredibly well received by local communities. We are assembling a further programme to build more affordable housing, including on former council garage sites, and are in detailed negotiations with Homes England yet again to secure sufficient capital grants for these and other projects. They see Broxtow as a competent and capable of authority which can give them confidence in delivering sizeable council house building projects. We will provide continued support for people with disabilities through the Disabled Facilities Grant Scheme to adapt homes, and also with a commitment to build more accessible bungalows for people with long-term illnesses and disabilities. The council has already completed around 300 minor and major adaptations to the housing stock in this financial year alone. On business growth, this council is committed to economic regeneration and making improvements across all of our 4 town centres. Our economic development budget proposals include the delivery of the significant multi-year regeneration schemes in Stapleford, which had the £21 million levelling up fund, Townsdale, and Kimberley, which had the £16.5 million levelling up fund. And I think we remain determined to attract investment into Eastwood to meet its needs. The refurbished Eastwood Cedars Hub now offers free walk-in and bookable support sessions from a variety of local support groups, including the NHS, Broxtow Housing and employment groups. And let me just remind everybody that when we went to the East Midlands Mayor for some contribution to the Cedars project, we did not get one bean. When we went to the County Council for funding to help us with the Cedars project, we did not get one bean. But we decided as an authority that we wanted to continue with that project to provide joined up services to people in Eastwood and its community. And we've been able to deliver that project, ostensibly thanks to Councillor Milan Radulovic, but fundamentally the ability that we have as an authority to still provide services, joined up services to the communities when applications for funding are rejected by other authorities and indeed other budget holders is a remarkable achievement as well for us as an authority. We are excited about progressing with significant investment plans for a healthy living hub on Walker Street in Eastwood as part of our commitment to invest in the town. This would include a new health and wellbeing hub that will provide a new GP surgery, pharmacy, library, community swimming pool, boxing club and women's services. Eastwood needs better health facilities, and this new centre will deliver modern services for residents alongside high quality leisure amenities. And again, there are some in this room, I think, who have taken an almost a gleeful approach in deliberately trying to question what we're trying to do around the health centre in Eastwood, and what I think would sooner see it fail than actually secure the funding to achieve something for a generational impact in Eastwood itself. And I just wish that more people would get behind what we're trying to do in Eastwood. And when you look at the figures that have been repeated in this council chamber for health disparities, it is absolutely remarkable that when the health disparity for cancer rates is 45% different between Eastwood and the south of the borough, when it's 54% different for needing a carer between Eastwood and the south of the borough, 30% for diabetes, 70% for heart disease, 50% for strokes, and 75% different health disparity for those in Eastwood compared to the south of the borough in palliative care. What we should all be doing is working incredibly hard to ensure that we can influence wherever we can to secure the funding for an Eastwood Health Centre. The people of Eastwood deserve it. Mr Mayor, we recognise the importance of health and wellbeing across the borough and are therefore very pleased that the council has secured planning permission for a new replacement Brancott Leisure Centre, again when others doubted us, and again when others thought that we couldn't do it, and again when other councils up and down the country are closing health centres, not rebuilding brand new ones. A report is coming to Cabinet on the 10th of March, about less than a week's time, where a business case that will enable the project to proceed onto the construction and delivery stage. In Beeston, our cinema and leisure development is performing well, and we look forward to the continued economic benefits of increased footfall and the further development of nighttime economy. I've always been a supporter of increased football. We've got the Stapleford Town Hickins Lane development, and if you were there this year at the opening of the Hickins Lane Centre, when Dave Watson came down with his wife, and there were hundreds of people there, kids, community groups, councillors, the community, all there together. It was a truly, truly remarkable day. And again, it is a flagship development for Broxtowe, and yet again, we are achieving it. Our budget proposals include the continued investment in local parks and open spaces, and also, very importantly, we have maintained our support to community and voluntary groups, particularly like those of Citizens Advice Broxtowe. It's no secret that we place the environment at the top of our political agenda, and in terms of environmental goals, we continue to support our Green Futures campaign to tackle climate change and reduce our carbon emissions to net zero by 2027, which we are completely on track to do. Importantly, this budget will enable us to continue initiatives like transitioning the vehicle fleet to HVO fuel, electric vehicle charging points, delivery of the Climate Change Forum, green festivals, free tree scheme, support for the Green Rewards initiative, and development of the retrofit roadmap for homes across the borough, and the implementation of energy efficiency measures across council-owned properties. All that alongside the continued development and promotion of our blue-green infrastructure strategy. Mr Mayor, I want to reaffirm again that this budget makes no cuts to jobs, no redundancies or reductions to our frontline services. As a result of our funding position and important investment plans, we anticipate drawing £760,000 from general fund reserves. This is a remarkable achievement in the current climate, with other challenging financial settlements for districts. In order to manage unforeseen risks, we are always looking to protect our reserves, and I'm pleased to report that on the 1st of April 2025, our general fund reserves totalled over £5.5 million. We will continue working to achieve a sustainable budget over the lifetime of this council, and we will always retain a prudent level of balances. Mr Mayor, for us, it's all about delivery. the significant regeneration investment in Stapleford and Kimberley, supported by the local regeneration fund, and our Refresh Green Futures programme, as well as the success of the cinema and the leisure development in Beeston, exciting significant future leisure and health developments in Brancott and Eastwood demonstrate this. So as I wrap up then, I would like to place on record my sincere thanks again to members and officers for the constructive way in which they've approached this budget. Matters that we have considered within the budget have been set out for you in the reports to Cabinet previously, in detail, and there was no comments recorded in the minutes from any opposition party at that Cabinet meeting. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee has had the opportunity to scrutinise the budget papers and review the business plans. The Council continues to deliver a progressive, robust and sustainable budget, and we have no hesitation in proposing that the recommendations of the Cabinet be accepted by Council this evening. Mr Mayor, the budget setting and Council tax resolution is included within the Council papers tonight, and accordingly I move the resolution as set out as item 8 on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Whoever seconded it?
Mr Mayor, I second the budget papers and I reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? I'll come to you, Councillor Owen, first.
I thought you might, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, fellow councillors, ladies and gentlemen, yet again we've had a litany of hyperbole, which is for the vast majority of residents in Nuttall, in Broxtowe and Nuttall as well, divorced from reality. We have that old mantra trotted out: no cuts to services, no redundancies, no job losses. Time and time again, we have it trotted out. And we still don't believe it. Particularly the bit about services. Go and tell members of the Kimberley Swimming Club that there's been, oh yeah, they moan.
Score.
Go and tell members of the Kimberley Swimming Club that there's been no cuts to services. And all those, it's not a laughing matter. It was a club that was built up over many years and did, unfortunately, continues to do some excellent work. But go tell them that there has been no cuts to services, because quite clearly there has. Simply because we couldn't find £500,000 to do some repair work. Yet, of course, we've heard tonight that we can find millions for a new leisure centre at Brancott. Go and tell those motorists who used to enjoy an hour or two of free parking so they could do their shopping that there's been no cuts to services. And I think they may well disagree with you. Tell those who have had developments foisted upon them, resulting in their properties being flooded, that there's no cuts to services. But perhaps most of all, tell those living in Broxtowe housing, those that have had to endure mould, poor services, lack of repairs, inability to make contact with the council to voice their complaints, and of course the 3,000 who have not had the fire safety work done that they should have. Go tell them that there's been no lack of services or cut in services. And so much so that the cost for compensation for those who have not had the service to which they are entitled, compensation in the year 24-25 to our residents in our social housing was 1.1 million. The following year, this year, 315,000. So the lack of service, you might argue, is not quite as bad. But they're budgeting for failure again in this coming year by putting a further £280,000 into the budget to cover the cost of compensation. So go tell them, go tell those residents that there has been no cuts to services. And as for jobs, well, yes, we know that Labour and, of course, the Broxtowe Alliance are simply socialists on steroids, have always regarded local councils as job creation schemes. Always. The more we can employ, the better it is. And we are to witness over the next few weeks that failure in the housing department is going to be rewarded by the promotion of at least one person on a significantly increased salary of thousands. Failure is going to be rewarded. Yeah, jobs are protected, even those that are failing to do their jobs. But in difficult times, and we've heard about these difficult times, what we should be trying to do, we should be trying to be on the side of residents. And hence, we have put forward, or we are putting forward, and I'm proposing an amendment to the budget tonight. And so that proposed amendment will be circulated, if please.
I second the proposal.
Okay, I'll wait for a couple of minutes while all the copies are distributed to all councillors and give you a chance to read it. Okay. Okay, so we'll ask the original proposer and seconder if the amendment's accepted? No? Okay, so in that case,
I haven't prepared anything else. I assumed it would be.
in that case, we'll debate the amendment. I'll ask you to
Right,
move the
well-
amendment first.
Sorry, there are £5.5 million. Why should we want to be adding to that, particularly in the light of possible local government reorganisation, where balances, reserves, any last penny, any and every last penny would be handed over for Nottingham City Council to spend? Why should we take it out of the pockets of our residents to give it to them? And the other way in which we can make savings is from the vacancies budget, which again, in our view, is underestimated as it has been for the last 3 years. Going back to 2022-23, the vacancy budget was was £360,000, yet the actual savings were £641. Obviously, an extra 281,000 was saved. In the year 23-24, over and above what was budgeted, an additional £301,000 was saved. And in the last financial year, in the last financial year for which I have full figures, 24-25, £949,000 extra was saved in the vacancy budget. So there are ways and means of making that available to ensure that the council tax need not go up. But I would also make the point that if we were running things, there would clearly be changes in policy. And it may well not be necessary to withdraw all of the proposed extra from reserves. And I give you some examples. Tonight, you've just voted through an extra 30-odd thousand in members' allowances. There certainly wouldn't be a subsidy of £14 per visitor to the D.H. Lawrence Museum. There would be savings from the markets section, thousands of pounds going into that. We wouldn't be buying expensive fuel, £60,000 extra going on that. We wouldn't be rewarding through pay rises what I've already mentioned as far as staffing is concerned. And we wouldn't certainly be paying for civic jollies to Poland to go and look at salt mines. Now, you may well say the amount that would be saved would be relatively small in people's overall budget. You would say that it's modest at the side of the increase being imposed by the mendacious Muppets at County Hall. But every little helps. And I think it would be a very positive statement by this council to say to people, we recognise the pressure that you are under and we are going to do our bit towards easing that pressure. It might not be much, but it's something. And that is why I am proposing on behalf of our group this very reasonable amendment that I've demonstrated quite clearly can be easily funded by the council so that the burden on our council taxpayers is eased very slightly. Maybe not a lot, but certainly by a little bit. And I think that's what we should be doing. So the amendment has been moved and seconded. I don't know whether we will have an automatic recorded vote on this. So I don't need to ask for one. We will have that. I so move the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Is seconded. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Pringle? No. Okay. Okay, so, yeah. So does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Radulovic.
Mr Mayor, I'm normally noted for my very calm demeanour. However, tonight I may make an exception. That was probably one of the worst speeches I've heard in many years in politics. And to personally attack an officer who has not got the right to reply in an open forum, which is on record, on YouTube, is an absolute disgrace and an embarrassment. Yeah. And I hope you feel suitably chastised by what you've done tonight. And I hope that when you go home tonight, you'll watch YouTube and wallow in your own embarrassment. Because that's how I feel about it tonight. We all know council tax is a regressive tax. The fact it does not keep rise with inflation and therefore requires to be set each year. And each year is compounded by every percentage that you don't raise it by for future years and future generations. And Councillor Marshall, you probably didn't understand it, spoke at length about what happened in the previous government, in particular on austerity when they cut rents by 1% per year between 2016 and 2020. It now costs us £6.8 million on the housing revenue account. And so when we talk about council tax, we talk about a £5 a year increase in Broxtowe. For a Band B property, it's about 7.5 pence per week. Nottinghamshire County Council last week put their council tax up 15 times the rate that Broxtowe's proposing. 15 times. To over £75 per year per Band D property increase. That's 15 times what we're proposing. And yet they stood on a ticket of saying that they want to repair all the roads, everything was going to be fine, we were going to make billions of pounds or millions of pounds worth of savings, and everything will be rosy once again in good old Nottinghamshire. Well, reality's come back to bite. But one of the main reasons, Chair, for rejecting the recommendation to know the amendment tonight is to talk about the volatility, in particular what's happening in the Middle East. Councils will find themselves increasingly under pressure. Or anybody who doubts what I'm about to say, go to the petrol pumps at Morrison's or any of your other local garages and see already the impact of what's happened in the bombing in Iran, Ras Tanura in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. You'll look at it quite and see there has been a huge increase already in fuel prices, and that will indeed impact quite dramatically on costs of living. What we're proposing tonight is an increase for a Band B property of about 8 pence per week. That is not the £75 per year at Nottinghamshire County Council. I say it's 15 times more. Mr Mayor, it was nothing more than from the opposition a political stunt. Because what we're doing is grasping at straws. You know, what you're faced with tonight is a budget that's exciting, it's got good things in it, it's got new builds in it, it's got environmental projects in it, it's got the environment right at the heart of all that we do. Last year, if you remember, do you remember last year? We had the amendment on car parks. Do you remember? Let me just tell you something, shall I? Car parking last year is up from last year. This year, at the end of February, it was 321,000, and that's up from 299,000 last year. So it's been about 30,000, just 20,000 increase in number of car parking spaces and revenue. And you also remember last year, we all had grandstanding from Councillor Owen and his colleagues. They were all going to reject the £800. Do you remember? Can you all remember in this council chamber, members' allowances? Not one of them rejected it. I've been and checked the figures. Everybody who complained last year that they were not going to take that money took it. And then tonight is saying we're going to spend another £30,000. So presumably you're going to take it again this year. Yeah? Yeah? Mr. Mayor, it is just rank hypocrisy from Councillor Owen. Take the opportunity to slander a member of our staff, to actually propose an amendment without any real thought into it, about any understanding of the consequences of what they do. And Mr. Mayor, not to deal into an alternative budget or proposal, but to pass a minor amendment looking at part of the budget that somehow thinks we can have a bit of fun with. You know, and that's totally reckless and irresponsible. And for the record, Councillor, and those people that's going to Poland are paying for themselves. They've already been told. So just before you start, I'd be very, very careful what you say. Very careful. At least try and get some of your facts right. Mr. Mayor, I'm asking you to reject the amendment tonight. Not just simply about the money. As I said, council tax is a regressive tax. And even places like Newark and Sherwood and Rushcliffe. Newark and Sherwood, if they didn't raise it for about the next 4 years, then they'd be about the same as Broxtowe. But in the meantime, Mr. Mayor, our actual council tax setting in the borough is one of the lowest. It's one of the best performing and highest performing councils. That's according to independent assessment, Mr. Mayor. And when you look at the exciting programme that we put forward, all members in this council, for a progressive programme next year, particularly concentrating on the basic needs of our community, about housing, about environment. Mr. Mayor, I think it's an absolute farce that they come along with some Mickey Mouse proposals tonight just to toy at the edges instead of actually talking about the positive way in which we're advancing the quality of life of Broxtowe residents.
Thank you, Councillor Vidulik. I'll call on Councillor Watts next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Councillor Vidulovic, you suggested that Councillor Owen should get his facts right. But why should he break the habits of a lifetime?
Well, I know.
I do actually want to thank Councillor Owen for his proposed list of cuts, demonstrating why it is that the Conservatives should never be allowed anywhere near power, ever again. We're going to close museums, we're not going to give staff pay rises, and clearly staff are fair game for any sort of insult or abuse that he wishes. Fuel prices. Apparently that's your fault, Millen, that fuel prices are going up. Nothing to do with Mr. Trump and his illegal wars or anything like that. Of course, the cheapest way, the best way to keep fuel prices down is to switch to green energy. But the Conservatives have consistently opposed everything that we've tried to do on that. I think the word you used, Millen, was hypocrisy. I couldn't agree more with you on that. What this amendment seeks to do is to actually reduce services, because if we increase staff vacancies, we won't be able to provide the levels of services that we do. It is a political stunt with no logic behind it whatsoever, and there is no way on earth that we in my party would fall for a contrick like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Call on Councillor Marshall to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and you know, it doesn't happen very often, but me and Councillor Watts are in agreement tonight, particularly on the yes, I know, particularly on the veiled motion from Councillor Owen, which would have the impact of service reductions or cuts to services. Why do you say one thing and do another? Time after time after time, Councillor Owen. Why do you criticise our budget when we want to create jobs, like the tree inspector, like the quantity surveyors, why at Cabinet, when it's played out in front of you and those proposals are made public, and Councillor Radulovic always asks you, have you got any problems? Why don't you say anything? Why don't you say anything then, and yet now say something? Pretend you're against it. Why, when member allowances went up last year, did you say you weren't for them and then take them? Why did you eulogise at the Alderman ceremony and joke with the chair of the remuneration committee about what a great job he's doing and then criticise it and pretend you don't want it? Why did you say it when you're going to do something else? Why did you criticise the Miscoff visit, which we put some importance on, when the last time we went, you sent 2 Tory councillors? Why did you say you're against it, and then why do you do something different? Well, we all know why. You say it because it looks good, and it looks like you're in opposition, but you do it because you agree with us. And you do it because you can take some credit for it. And you do it because you know it's the right thing. You say one thing, but you do another. And we all know that actions speak louder than words. You say your proposals aren't very much. You say they're not much fiscally. You can infer that it won't really make that much difference. You almost said this, but we don't believe that. We want to build new leisure centres. Yeah. You don't. We want to rebuild Bramcote Leisure Centre. You don't. We want to do the Cedars project for people in Eastwood. You don't. Where do you think that funding comes from? We want to build an Eastwood Health Centre. This budget allows us to contribute to that and get those wheels in motion. You don't. And that's all right, because you're Conservative with a capital C. And I understand that. That is what these politics play out in the chamber. But we're for things. We're for the people of Eastwood. We're for the people of Broxtowe. We want to do something to help them. And that's why this budget allows us to do it. That's why I'll be rejecting this motion in its entirety.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Steve Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I've already mentioned, we had a meeting last week at County Hall where we discussed their budget. And the Conservative group at County Hall put forward an amendment to the budget. It was well thought out, it was well presented, it was professional, and it didn't say we're going to freeze council tax, because that's just unrealistic. It proposed that it went up by 2.99%, which is exactly what we're proposing here. I have to say, I was very, very impressed with the Conservative spokesman on finance, Stuart Bestwick, who's an old-style, professional Conservative politician. They did used to have them. And I have to say, because of the way it was presented and the debacle that is reform, I voted for their amendment. First time I've ever voted for a Conservative amendment at County Hall because of those things. I won't say anything about this other than I certainly won't be supporting this Conservative amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Before we move to the vote on the amendment, does anybody else wish to speak? No? In that case.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm glad we've generated a debate, and I'm delighted to hear that my questioning outside of this council chamber has resulted in a saving to the council taxpayer of a trip to Miscoff. Because certainly when I inquired, and I have it in writing, that it was being funded by the taxpayer. So that's one small win for us, and I'm delighted that that has been the case. We're not members of Cabinet. Yes, I can speak from time to time, but I can't go through everything. I don't get a chairman's briefing or anything like that. And consequently, we can't speak on every item, but we do say a lot, much more than oppositions have said in the past. and will continue to do so. We don't want to build leisure centres. Well, that's a nonsense. It was the Conservatives that built Bramcote Leisure Centre in the first place. Yeah, I know it was. I know it was. And we built it. And we maintained the one at Chilwell and the one at Kimberley. We didn't close a leisure centre. We certainly built them. I don't know what you're on about. And to suggest that what I'm proposing will result in a service reduction is absolute nonsense. I've already demonstrated how the money that I'm proposing should be used to keep council tax levels down can be generated without a reduction in services. As far as the vacancy savings are concerned, the savings are made anyway. They're just not being put into the budget. That's what's happened in previous years. There's been an underestimation in the budget of how much is going to be saved. The money will be saved anyway. All we're doing is being honest and upfront and putting it there in the budget. And as for the Liberals not supporting our amendment, I would hope that hell would freeze over before they ever supported anything that we put forward, because there would be a flaw in what we were doing if they did. What, that hell's going to freeze over? Well, I'm delighted to hear it. I wouldn't want you to, because I would feel that we were slipping. So this is quite a reasonable proposal. It's quite a reasonable amendment. And as far as members' allowances are concerned, of course, we said we didn't think they should be increased, but everybody else was going to take them. So that was it. That was the decision that was taken by the council. That was the decision that was taken. And as it always is. But if you're offering not to take the increase and would stick by it, then I'm sure the rest of us would do so as well. It's quite clear you're not going to accept the amendment. It's a reasonable amendment. And like I said in my opening remarks, it's a litany of hyperbole, and it's completely divorced from the vast majority of council taxpayers in this borough.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. So we'll move to the recorded vote, which will be, your names will be called in alphabetical order. So we'll be asked whether you're in favour, for, against or abstain. Thank you.
Councillor Bagshaw.
Again.
Councillor Bales. Councillor Ball. Councillor Brown. Councillor Bullock.
Against?
Councillor Bunn.
Against.
Councillor Camplin.
Against.
Carr.
Against.
Councillor Steve Carr.
Against.
Councillor Cooper.
Against.
Councillor Cullen.
Against.
Councillor Danheimer.
Against.
Councillor Fassio. Councillor Harlow. Councillor Jeremiah.
Against.
Councillor Kingdon.
Against.
Councillor Land.
Against.
Councillor Donna McCrae. Councillor Richard McCrae. Councillor Marsh.
Against.
Councillor Marshall.
Against.
Councillor McGrath.
Against.
Councillor Mee.
Against.
Councillor Jill Owen. Councillor Philip Owen. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Pringle. Councillor Radulovic.
Against.
Councillor Skinner.
Against.
Councillor Pauline Smith. Councillor Vanessa Smith.
Against.
Councillor Stockwell. Councillor Tideswell.
Against.
Councillor Watts.
Against.
Councillor Webb. Councillor Williamson. Councillor Winnifield. Councillor Woodhead.
Against.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, for the tally.
That's right. That's the other way. Okay, thank you. So the result was 6 for 32 against, so the amendments failed. So we'll now move back to the main motion, and the last person before we moved on to the amendment, the last person who'd indicated they wanted to speak was Councillor Bales.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to change what I was going to say slightly. I'd just like to thank the Conservatives for doing something well 60 years ago and building a leisure centre. It's a shame we didn't do something right 10 years ago when you voted against Oxley Lane. We want to have this issue now, and I'm assuming you've apologised to Kimberley Swimming Club for doing that as well. Today we debate the first budget since the Fair Funding Review and the prospect of the multi-year settlements. Changes that have been confirmed when we had our meeting with the Section 151 officer, and I'd like to once again thank the officer for the evening that you gave to going through the budget with us. Thank you for that. It brings a level of stability that local government has been denied for far too long. Let's be absolutely clear, this shift is not accidental. It is the direct result of a Labour government finally prepared to repair the damage done to councils after 14 years of Conservative austerity, years in which local authorities were expected to do more with less, and communities, all our communities, paid the price for that. Councillor Marshall spoke of the Fair Funding Review and its impacts on grants. The Fair Funding Review rightly separates temporary accommodation funding from the homelessness, rough sleeping and domestic abuse grant. For over a decade, councils have been forced into an impossible choice, either invest in prevention or cover spiralling temporary accommodation costs, never being able to do both. This reform ends a structural absurdity that the previous government refused to confront. The new homes bonus, which was heralded by the Conservatives when they brought it in 2011, created deep inequities. It funneled money into already affluent areas capable of rapid house building, while leaving areas with the greatest housing need behind. It rewarded quantity over quality, encouraged developments that failed to deliver affordability, and piled administrative burdens onto councils already stretched to breaking point. It was a scheme designed for headlines, not for communities, very much like the amendment that he tabled tonight. Mr. Mayor, we must turn to the condition of our housing stock. Our residents are living with the real consequence of long-term underfunding in both repairs and staff to deliver them. The rent increase proposed tonight will only be defensible if it genuinely enables us to bring homes up to a standard any of us would accept for ourselves. The regulator gave this council a C3 rating, the lowest of all social landlords operating in the Broxtowe area, with our tenants living with mould, damp, health risks and unacceptable delays to essential repairs. When the inspectors tell us we are not meeting the diverse needs of residents, we should listen. Sending digital-only invitations to engagement events inevitably excludes large sections of our community. The satisfaction survey results must therefore be treated with caution. Residents cannot be satisfied with information they were never given the chance to access. It was welcome the mention of Bramcote Leisure Centre. What's concerning is that a business case is coming forward 15 months after the announcement. Stage 1 costs were already available when you were doing the initial tender scheme. I know that. It's the industry I work in. I know that's there available for people doing. So it does show that there's a lack of urgency on this scheme. On staffing, yes, we welcome assurances there will be no compulsory redundancies. But let's not pretend the current workforce is adequately resourced. Departments across this council are running on goodwill, exhaustion and vacancies. This budget is silent on strengthening the staff who deliver the services residents rely on every day. And are we to assume that the council will continue to be bottom of the pile regarding bin collections and social housing if we're not increasing the staffing? Mr. Mayor, despite our concerns that I've raised here, we are supporting this budget. And the reason is simple. This Labour government is reversing the decline caused by 14 years of Conservative cuts that hollowed out councils, weakened public services and left communities struggling to cope. The increased funding we see today is a direct result of a government committed to fairness, prevention and rebuilding what austerity tore down. This budget moves us forward. and I welcome that. And I welcome the work that all the staff have done to bring us this budget. But our responsibility now, all of us in this room, whether you agree with each other politically or not, is to deliver the improved services, decent homes and community investment that our residents have waited far too long for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bales. Would anybody else like to speak? Yeah, Councillor Watts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are aspects of this budget I certainly welcome. The commitment to Bramcote Leisure Centre, of course, is very welcome. I look forward to seeing the business case very shortly. The recognition of the work that our staff do is absolutely right, and I'd like to place on record our thanks to all of the staff of this council for the efforts that they go to, which I hope they will know are very much appreciated by people on this side of the chamber. So those are the good things. There are unfortunately some things that are lacking in this budget that we would like to have seen. We know that the council suffered from poor control of commercial rents, and there doesn't seem to be anything in the budget to address that, and that's hit the council's finances. We know that the council has suffered from poor provision of housing. The inspector's report, if we'd been a private business, would have led to staff being or directors resigning or being booted out. And the budget doesn't seem to properly address that. In Bramcote recently, we've experienced massive problems with flooding. There doesn't seem to be anything in the budget that will address issues like that. We need to have more investment in our environment team and in our planning team, because the flooding is coming from a new housing development and should never have got to that situation. And there is still a withdrawal from balances of £750,000. I recognise fully that that is as a result of the fact that we still don't get, whatever they call it, there still is no fair funding review. It may be better than the last one, but it's still a long way from a fair deal for Broxdale residents. So I certainly don't intend to vote against this budget, but these are shortcomings that mean that I can't vote in favour of it. And so our intention at this stage is to abstain on this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Does anybody else wish to speak? Yes? Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to, first of all, respond to the comments from Councillor Bales around the rent increase being used to make improvements to our housing stock, and of course that is our intention. So I would like to give you that assurance here and now that that is definitely something that we are working for. If you'd attended Cabinet recently, you would have been able to see the progress that we're making on that, and we'll be making further updates to Cabinet regularly on how we're doing that. I think it's a really good budget in terms of the housing revenue account. We have allowed for significant investment in our housing stock, both through the housing revenue account and through capital investment, which will help us to work on the issues that we are facing following the regulatory report. I would like to point out one thing, though, that people seem to be forgetting, that there were some positives in that regulatory report, particularly around repairs. And I know that, you know, when individuals face issues with repairs, that is unfortunate and they will be unhappy. And that is still going to continue. But we have made significant improvements to our repair service. And that was highlighted in the report from the regulator. In terms of the 3,000, just to correct you on a point there, Councillor, and it's not 3,000 people on that list, it's 3,000 actions. That has already been reduced by over 500 since we last gave an update to Cabinet, and it continues to fall. I think it's a little bit, I'd just also like to say, I think it's a little bit unfair, really, as actually what Councillor Radulovic said, for you to publicly post online, the Conservatives, to say that they expect me to resign over this. But then when you're in the council chamber with me, when you're at cabinet, when you're here, you don't say that, but you pick on officers who are not here to defend themselves. I'm a politician, right? I came into this role expecting that sort of response. That's what we expect in part of this job. So why would you pick on people who are not here to defend themselves when you could have directed that at me? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, everything. First of all, I'm going to just respond to Councillor Bales. You know what? It's useful to have industry experience. I'm always harking on about my industry experience in the voluntary sector, aren't I? But the delays in the building of Bramcote Leisure Centre is absolutely nothing at all to do with a lack of urgency. It's entirely to do with getting it right, and entirely to do with listening to the needs of the residents and being prepared to implement what they've said to us. And the delay, because we decided to have go with the residents' view that there should be a deeper pool and a viewing gallery, and they need to redraw the plans in order to make that happen. But that's what residents wanted. And then the very careful negotiations with the Whitehills Park Academy, and thank you to Councillor Miller-Radulovic for that, to ensure that when we do get round to putting forward the business case and building this house, we get it right first time, and it's fit for purpose for more than the next 60 years, a real legacy, something that the people, as Councillor Watt says, something that people of Bramcote, but the entire borough, really, really want and will be pleased with us for building something that they actually wanted and asked for with the amendments that they wanted. So, and while I'm standing up, I also want to say that, you know, my portfolio of leisure and health, the officers, the staff that work in this department are exceptional in everything that they do. And we're putting forward in this next year the best events programme that we've ever had, support for people with their health and well-being, the need to raise the funds to build a new health centre, all of this, entirely exceptional staff making this happen on behalf of the residents of the borough. And I'm proud and very, very happy to be the portfolio holder for this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cullen. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank Greg for the budget. I think it's a brilliant one, and the emphasis that we put on the environment gives me heart. And it's always been at the top of our list. We have a leader who's absolutely committed to environmental matters, and that makes all the difference. We have a wonderful department who are also committed to it. And the environmental things go across the board. We've got environment in housing as well. We're looking at the retrofitting and the eco measures that we're doing to housing. We've got environment going into heritage as well. When we're working at the Hemstock, the Brinsley Headstocks, we've got a lot of environmental work which is crossing over into heritage work, which is going to be there as a legacy for things to come. I mean, we always should look back at where we've come from and what made us as we are now, and then we can build and look forward. What a wonderful idea it is to have Colliers Wood, the work at Colliers Wood, and the work in Eastwood, and the work at the Headstocks, all connected together and creating a big walk. So you can go on a 5-mile walk and see all of those things, the environmental impact and the heritage that's there. And that's down to our leader, and it's a wonderful budget that does that. And to have a stupid suggestion that we should not pay for fuel that is clean, but instead we can continue to use diesel and pollute everybody as we go along Broxtowe. I mean, that's so ridiculous. We're monitoring the expenditure on fuel very carefully, and especially in light of what's going on in the Middle East, because apparently the vegetable oil stuff is affected by that as well, because we get the prices of that on the back of theirs. So we will have to look at that, but we look at it very carefully. You know, we don't just rush into things. Every penny that is spent in the Environment and Climate Change Department is spent carefully with the best of intentions. We don't waste anything. The garden waste collections has generated £1 million for the third year running. You know, we must be doing something right. And I would just commend this budget because I love all the environmental things. I could go on and on and on. I've got pages of it. But thank you very much. I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Councillor Bull.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. It's not something I'm known for, but I'll do my best. I just want to say I welcome all of the comments here tonight. Because they bring out some of the complexities that go into setting these budgets. It's not easy. There has been the fairer funding settlement that's been referenced by Councillor Bales earlier on, and that has made significant improvements, particularly to the county council and the city budgets, enabling the city to actually apparently present a balanced budget for the first time in a very long time, which is fantastic, and I'm really pleased that the government has done that. It's unfortunate that that level of support has not been extended to districts, as was outlined in Councillor Marshall's speech earlier, and the struggles that we still face and the uncertainty that we still have. However, despite this, I'm really pleased that some of the many things that Broxton is doing and this budget is enabling us to do. In particular, something that's dear to my heart is our substantial environmental commitments. You know, while other councils are cutting their commitments around climate change, we're continuing to invest in that, continuing to push towards our targets, as Councillor Skinner has just pointed out. We're improving our parks across the borough. In fact, we're bringing in a new one, which there's a consultation open on at the moment for people to determine the name for it, up near Bramcote. I'm not going to say whether it's in Bramcote and Stapleford. I'll let you fight that out amongst yourselves. And also further developments in Brinsley, at the Head Starts, with Jubilee Park, QE Park. They're all across the borough. We've got social housing decarbonisation, which not only helps with climate change, but also improves their housing, reduces their bills, and helps them with the cost of living. We've got our Green Rewards programme, which has given out free trees across the borough, which again has environmental impacts, but also health and wellbeing aspects. Flood alleviation through green infrastructure, and citizen forums. Particularly, we did one on the issue of flooding, which brought people from across the borough, representative of all the demographics here into the chamber, and in fact elsewhere in the borough, it wasn't just in Beeston, to talk about the issues that they have and to discuss that with them and to bring their ideas forward into the plans that we're making. And that wasn't done via online consultation, that was done by investment in that and by bringing in grants as well from elsewhere to make it affordable and going out and finding that representative group. And so this is the other thing about all these investments we make, the wide range of other benefits to them, including the health and well-being benefits to the residents of Broxtowe. Then the other thing I want to talk about briefly is just how this investment also supports the work done by our community teams, because obviously my portfolio is the community safety portfolio. And I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, we've invested further in our community safety list team, and that is made possible by the budget that's put forward to us today. That enables us to continue our commitments on reducing ASB, and we have had some really good results. I know that there is obviously, any ASB is too much, and we would love it to be down to zero, but we've actually had like 25% reductions year on year in areas across the borough, which is fantastic. Continue to work with our partners, continue to tackle drug and alcohol budgets, but also continuing to campaign on some of the really significant issues that I know councillors bring here. So we've got a campaign that we're putting together at the moment around e-bikes and e-scooters and information around those. And we're also doing a campaign around supporting our diverse residents across the borough by making it clear in Broxtowe that all of our communities are welcome, all of them are important, and that we will not accept the actions of a small minority that target those and try to sow division and hate across our borough. I'm really proud of Broxtowe. I'm really proud to be a councillor at Broxtowe. I'm always proud that people elected me and enable me to do this job. And I'm also proud of this budget that we're putting forward today, which continues to support those communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bunn. Councillor Criscall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also proud of this budget. I think
Our continued investment into our local areas is very welcome. Through either the Staple for Towns deal or for my area, the Kimberley Means Business, which in the last year has enabled the Town Council to transform the townscape with things like the illuminations work. If anyone's been through Kimberley recently, you'll see that love is in the air. We've had Valentine's Day decorations up all month. But it's also gone to our businesses. I think it's 49 business grants to separate businesses across the town. And we're having other investments, as in going towards the Stag Ground, the cricket club. We're looking at completing the community centre this year. If we go a little bit further afield, you've got the Bentley Viaduct. Obviously, as you mentioned earlier in this meeting, we had the opening earlier where we surprisingly got photobombed by a runner. You might be able to see her in some of the pictures on social media, but if you can't, you can see that we've actually photobombed some of her pictures that she's put up, that she posted on the Goose Fair Gallop account. And alongside that, we've obviously got the visitor centre, we've obviously got the industrial units side by side there, and it's great to see that we are continuing to invest into our local areas in this budget. I think it's also worth mentioning, it's great to see that we are committing again to the health centre in Eastwood. It's not only going to have an impact on the immediate area of Eastwood, but it brings leisure provisions to the north of the borough, which I know we have been lacking since the school closed the pool down in Kimberley. And yeah, there's a lot to be happy about with this budget, and that's why I will be happily supporting it.
Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course, I'm happy to support a budget, another no-cuts budget in Broxtowe, at a time when many councils all around us are pinching the pennies, cutting services, slashing jobs. And although the euphemism, of course, varies depending on where you are in the county, I think Reform are calling them efficiencies, the city called it cash management and recovery plans. They're all still cuts by a different name, and that's not made its way to Broxtowe. And, you know, we have to be realistic about the landscape that we're facing when it comes to local government financing. Government funding is still too little. There's still increased pressure on services as demand continues to rise, and local authorities are still expected to rely heavily on a regressive council tax system, as has been mentioned, to meet shortfalls, often leaving them with the choice to either draw on precious reserves or making cuts to services. And all the while, of course, residents are still facing the cost of living crisis with no sign of that easing up. And I think that fact there has been missed in other authorities. I don't know if anybody watched the City Council meeting on Monday, but it was all sunshine and roses now that we have a Labour government. There was an end to austerity, jumping up and down, patting each other on the back. And that's just not the reality for a lot of people, a lot of residents. And I think we've heard a bit of that tonight. Of course, Councillor Bales, in one breath, praised the government for better funding and said it's an end to austerity, and then in the next breath outlined that the council and its staff is still underfunded and under-resourced. Those two things can't be true if austerity is really over. But in spite of all of that, we're here supporting the Broxtowe Alliance budget that is delivering for residents across the board, all the while protecting jobs and services. This budget marks an ongoing commitment to the people of Broxtowe that in saying no to austerity, we will continue to do whatever we can to help shield them from the effects of the cost of living crisis. And despite what Councillor Owen said earlier, the services that we do provide do affect many of the most vulnerable people in our society, whether that's homelessness, it's people trying to get re-abled through leisure facilities, some of the people in social housing. And it's important that we maintain our commitment to those people, whether that's through extending council tax relief schemes for the poorest households or maintaining the lowest social rent in the East Midlands. Residents are, of course, at the heart of this budget. I did, in fact, stand up to highlight in this budget the real breadth, I think, of the delivery of investment across all areas of council business. It's a clear, coherent vision for a council that works with and for residents in delivering projects and services, rather than just scratching around trying to find savings, and while happily limping on providing the bare minimum levels of service. We've heard from Councillor Smith about the ambitious house building programme across the borough, all built at a higher standard than many private developers are delivering. tackling antisocial behaviour and picking up where the county leaves off, to the point where we're increasing staff numbers in our community safety team, a cultural and heritage strategy that reaches into all corners of the borough, and continued investment in projects like the Free Bilkie Waste Days that's seen a 76% reduction in fly tipping incidents over the last 12 months. Across all areas of the business, there is investment, advancement and delivery. And for me, one of the real highlights of this budget is the scale and ambition of the capital programme, not least in the investments that we're making in environment and open spaces. We've seen a comprehensive plan across the MTFS to update, upgrade and modernise the refuse fleet and waste facilities, getting ahead of the game and proactively investing in a food waste collection trial in autumn to ensure that we're ready for that coming into force in October 2027, despite of course not knowing if that will be properly funded by government. Delivering on the Brinsley Headstocks project in Collieries Woods Memorial, as has been mentioned, developing Bramcote Quarry hand in hand with local residents, improving parks across the borough, including the much needed toilet block and cafe at Bramcote Hills Park, and making accessibility improvements at park entrances so that as many people can enjoy our open spaces as possible. And plans which, by the way, of course, came through from a scrutiny review into that very issue, highlighting the commitment to being responsive and evolving council alongside investments. And realising the ambitions at DX Lawrence Country Park, delivering on the Stapleford Cricket Club for the new on Pit Lane following the amazing development at Higgins Lane, and so on and so on and so on. From this year's budget into the next, we're focusing on making Broxton the best place it can be and putting our money where our mouth is and getting things done. And it is this team that gets things done. So the message to residents and members is to take this alliance group seriously when we set out a vision of what we want to achieve. In addition to what's already been mentioned, let's take the Bramcote Leisure Centre as an example. As we've seen, when Councillor Cullen went to the leader and deputy leader and said, I want a new leisure centre in Bramcote, she isn't brushed off and told to hang up her ambition. In fact, that's taken forward, plans are drawn up, local residents are consulted. And despite members from other groups jumping up and down about funding and hoping the project will fail, the project is delivered and spades are in the ground before they can work up the next social media post. So when Councillor Chris Carr knocks on the leader's door and said we need to do something about the Kimberley Brewery site, and the response from this council is to take up the burden left behind by the private developers and press ahead with trying to develop the land ourselves, or when Broxton is robbed of a health and leisure facility in the north of the borough by an academy trying to fleece this council, and Councillor Radulovic outlines his vision for a new health and leisure hub in Eastwood, the smart money is on us achieving it. Because this budget and the ones that have come before it show that, you know, it might not be tomorrow, might not be next month, but when this council puts its mind to something, it gets it done. And although we're, you know, of course we're all political people with a driving ideology, I hope it is clear to residents that we're not in this to simply play politics. We're here to deliver for residents. And the evidence that runs for that, it just runs all the way through this budget. So, of course, I'm happy to support the budget, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to support it, and I hope everyone else will too.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Jeremiah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similarly, I'm very pleased that I can support this budget, and I'm particularly pleased around the continued ambition we've got over the council house building programme. There's an awful lot of figures being thrown around tonight, too many for some, but I just want to highlight just one. 41% of homes purchased under right to buy are now in the hands of private landlords. 41%. Just let that sink in, particularly you, Philip. 4 out of 10 where the rents are considerably higher, increasing costs for tenants and also increasing the costs for the government in subsidies in terms of housing benefit that goes out of the public sector into the hands of private landlords. 4 out of 10 houses where a significant proportion of those are not maintained, resulting in a crumbling housing stock throughout the whole country. 4 out of 10 houses where there is no security for tenants. Section 21 notices being served, left, right and centre, ending up on our doorstep in terms of homelessness. We do need, and also 4 out of 10 houses where they're built for profit and not for the needs of the people. Okay? So I'm really pleased with our housing ambition. Over 100 houses built for the last few years as well. And not only that, but the quality of them. They are above standard. You look at the ones at Chilwell in particular that I know about. All of them come with solar panels, once again, saving our tenants costs. We still have the cheapest rents in the whole of the East Midlands. I think it's third nationally as well. So particularly on our housing budgets, I'm really pleased to support this budget, and I just think everybody else should as well.
Councillor Jeremiah. Councillor Camplin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support this budget. I just want to say thank you to the officers for putting together these stats that I want to speak to about how successful the pavilion has been. I was lucky enough to have been campaigning for my seat and subsequently actually just as it was sort of officially opening, so I sort of feel like everybody else has done all the work and I've kind of come along and kind of take the credit for it. But no, it's been fantastic to see how well it's being utilised. It's a great addition to Stayford and Broxtowe for present and future generations. It's created 117 jobs, and since its opening in October 25, it's generated £77,000 of income. I also wanted to pay tribute to my predecessor, Councillor Ross Boffinger, for his work in bringing that to fruition. The football, 10,000 spectators. It's growing. We're going to be we're delivering some football for disabled children. The paddle courts, 1,624 users. Might have increased since this stats were made. Well, I think we should have a go. Look at the daycare. It's multifaceted. The impact that it's having and the benefits that it's having to the future generation. There's lots of negativity about young people, particularly in Stapleford. This is going to be great. This is going to give people something to do. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that. There's still some improvements been made to the landscaping. We appreciate that. That will improve over the next few months. And just one thing about housing. We have put aside £150,000 for tackling damp and mould. So I'm sure residents will be pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camplin. Councillor Steve Scott.
Yes, just very briefly, I should be supporting this budget. It's a very good budget. I just feel as though I need to put something right that was said earlier by Councillor Marsh. He's probably not aware that whilst Councillor Cullen is very, very ably putting forward the case and the plans for Bramcote Leisure Centre, it was in fact me that kicked off the whole process, and myself and Mr. Dar went down to Raynham to actually see it, and that's what kicked the process off. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Pringle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, I'd like to say thank you to the team that work in the environment section of this council, because they do a great job. But I've just got a little bit of a niggle. We've just spent, as a council, £50,000 from UKPSF to do footpaths that go from, not as someone said on social media, the bit that I always walk my dog on. I don't know if you've seen that, but they reckon that's why it was done, because it's where I walk my dog. But the bit from area of Trowell through Cossall into Orsworth, really fantastic job and looks brilliant. But something wasn't done. You didn't do something about the access. So it was opened on Monday, and motorbikes have been along it Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have the photos on my phone. They've almost destroyed the footpath because there's no security stopping these people from getting in. And it's something we really need to work on. We should have access, but we must have something that stops electric motorbikes and scrambling motorbikes getting into the good work that we've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Does anybody else wish to speak before we move to that? Yeah, Councillor Richard McRae.
Yeah, I think the path the Don's path in Trowell, I think the police were down there on Monday on motorbikes, they told us today, so it might have been them. But that's just irrelevant, isn't it, really? Yeah, I'm going to support this budget. I think it is important. So thank you, everyone, from the officers and right up to the council staff that's put it together. because it's funding like this that helps different groups and organisations in the borough. And I probably said the same thing last year. It helps with, like, someone's mentioned the communities team earlier and the youth event that was done the other week. It helps with the mental health for youngsters and that. Some people might know what happened recently in Stapleford to a young man. So we need to be doing more. So we need funding for things like that. You know, everyone's mentioned the leisure centre, and that's, you know, a new one. We need one of them because I like going there. That's why I'm so super fit at the minute. But that joking aside, and then things like when people have spoke about environment tonight, and you've only got to, like, we've been out today walking around just talking about different issues with flooding and whatnot. So we need funding for things like them. So I'm sure Don will support the budget tonight, because hopefully then we can get some money towards flood defences and whatnot, if that's something this council can do. So yeah, it's, you know, nobody wants to see things going up, but unfortunately they have to. I've learned from the town council that I'm on, you know, year after year, we kept saying keep the budget as zero and that, and don't put it up and that, and then all of a sudden we're like, hang on a minute, we've got no money. So a few years ago, it ended up going, like, it was only pence, but on paper it was like 90% or whatever it was. It sounded crazy, and you know, you learn that you can't do that, because what looks good on paper isn't good on reality, is it? You know, someone's got to put the lights on and that, and things do go up in cost, don't they, unfortunately? So, yeah, I'm happy to support this, because I think we need to support it, because then it allows us to carry on doing all the great things that people have been mentioning tonight. And like I said, we need to do more for mental health for youngsters as well. And I'm sure something like this will allow us to do just a little bit. So, yeah, I am going to be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor McRae. So unless anybody else wants to speak, we'll go to Councillor Adulovic, who'd reserved the right to speak.
Thank you. Who's reserved the right to speak?
I've reserved the right to speak. Mr. Mayor, in asking all people to support the budget tonight, I want to stress the importance it is to try and address some of the more serious issues within our community, not least the disproportionate areas of poverty and deprivation that always seem to get overlooked. And whilst it's easy to talk about places like Eastwood, which has 35% of all school leavers who leave with no formal education, qualifications or training, it's also very important to understand the health inequalities that's bred from poverty. And what we try to do, and what we've always tried to do in this, is to accept our responsibility towards society as well as the council. And in doing so, we look to ways in which we can actively help to promote and support within our communities, not just about improving the environment or housing, but the importance that we stress on heritage and arts and culture, and promoting that feeling of belonging and that sense of believing that there is something better for us all at the end of it. And whilst I never pretend to be an inspirational figure for anybody, you know, this council has a remarkable record of delivery, of service delivery, that's been recognised throughout numerous peer reviews, if in particular recognising the commitment and support that councils put into achieving all that we do within the community, within our society. But Mr. Mayor, we live in difficult times, and I've briefly made reference to the fact that we need to be understanding of what the situation is, particularly in Iran, whether there is an escalation, whether that results in big increases in fuel prices and therefore the cost of living. Undoubtedly will push inflation much higher, because everything is connected and costs are connected to the fuel crisis. But also, Mr. Mayor, we need to be conscious and much more aware of the inequalities and the horrific treatment of minorities, particularly within places like Broxtowe, which is getting worse and deteriorating quite seriously. And I see no improvement, whilst the situation in the Middle East in particular may be far from everybody's mind today about putting council tax up 2.94%, but it will have profound impact on this council. And this council needs to prepare its response with great diligence, with great understanding, and be prepared to tackle local issues should they arise. Mr Mayor, you'll be delighted to know that we've already had negotiation discussions, myself with the environment team in particular, but also I've made reference to our comms team about the potential that we have for arts and events and other programmes. So, Mr Mayor, I thank you all for your kind words tonight, many of you, most of you. Philip, I really don't bother. It doesn't bother me that much what you say at all. In fact, you're an irrelevance. So, Mr Mayor, we have a clear strategic vision about improving the environment, improving access, improving equality, improving the quality of our homes, our town centres, our shopping facilities, our access. So, Mr Mayor, it's a progressive budget, and it's one I'm proud to be associated with, and I thank most sincerely Greg and all the other Cabinet members and portfolio holders and every one of our group who worked so hard to deliver what I think is a budget that really is the most ambitious programme of improvements within our society that we could possibly achieve, and I'm proud of it.
Thank you, Councillor Rudovich. Councillor Marshall, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and touch on some of the points and contributions, and thank you to the councillors, all councillors, for raising some of those questions and contributions. Look, not just tonight, but in previous meetings, whether it's council meetings, whether it's cabinet meetings, whether it's with this officer administration or with previous chief execs, we value public service. We say it a lot. We say openly that we think our officers are worth it. What they do, how hard they work in helping us deliver the strategies that we're talking about, we value a lot. We underline that by committing to them that we'll have no cuts to jobs and services in Broxtowe. That's where we stand. You don't work in local government unless you see it as a vocation. You're not in it for the money. You could earn loads more in the private sector doing a very similar job. But you're in it because you're also aligned to wanting to do some public good. We try and underline that by saying we've got no cuts to jobs and services. That's the demonstration we give to our staff. Now, I accept that there are vacancies, and I accept sometimes they get frustrated with us as councillors and say we demand too much and ask too much, or sometimes they might even think we've got it wrong. Not with me, but with Millen sometimes. But occasionally they might think that. But we have a discussion, we thrash it out, and then we deliver together as a joint endeavour. So our commitment to the council is that we value you, and we're not going to get rid of jobs or services. And when we're talking about joint endeavours, no one was more disappointed than us around the housing regulator report. And we went into length of that at Cabinet. And it would have been dead easy to hang out individuals or an officer or a councillor to resign. But we don't see it like that. I said it at the Cabinet meeting, we see it as a joint endeavour. It's our responsibility, and when others try and shirk their responsibilities or try and blame others, that's not our style. I said at the Cabinet, it's a joint endeavour. So what do? We support the officers and we say, right, okay then, we're frustrated and we're disappointed, but okay, how do we fix it? And we invest in it, and then we start turning it around, not just well, but quickly. And we're doing that now. And we're talking, and look, and I'm fairly confident we're going to get a positive housing regulator report even before our next formal inspection, because of the quality and the pace and the seriousness which we're tackling it. And we expect our councillors to stand up. So Councillor Smith tonight says, don't bandy about, insults where people haven't got the right to reply. Look at me in the eye and talk to me about it. Because we're going to take some of our responsibility in that joint endeavour in itself. And then in terms of some of the other just technical questions that were brought up, in terms of commercial approach to some of our units, well, the commercial approach to our units is that we'll lease them at market rent less 10%. But what's Millen talking about? Millen's saying it's not some airy-fairy kind of like unthought through strategy. We've talked a lot in this chamber around community wealth building. That underpins what we're about as an authority and as an administration. We want to incentivise local businesses and firms to come into Broxtowe, to work with us, to offer services in our community, and we do that via community wealth. Part of community wealth building is leasing your units at commercial rent, at market rent, less 10%. That's not an accident, that's a deliberate strategy. That's why Beeston is consistently high, for instance, in its units occupation and in our other towns. It's a strategy that we're doing, that's not an accident. And that's why we compare very, very favourably with other like-for-like towns across the country. And in terms of lead local flood, in terms of flood funding and an omission within the budget, Councillor Watts, he knows what he's saying, of course he knows it, but he knows we're not the lead local flood authority and we don't have the direct responsibility for that. We didn't have the direct responsibility to fix Kimberley. Councillor Marsh talks about it. Councillor Marsh says, OK, we don't have the direct responsibility to fix the problems at Kimberley, but what we're doing, we're going to hold a public meeting, Councillor Carr will stand up and Councillor Radulovic will stand up and say, we promise we're going to try, in our gift, to fix it. Not because it's our responsibility, but because we've got a moral responsibility to do it, and that's what we're doing. Yeah. So we've stood up and promised the residents of Kimberley that that's what we're going to do.
Do the best.
We're going to do our best, and we're going to fund a report to fix it, and we're going to open that report up, and we're going to demonstrate to the residents where no one else could. We're going to demonstrate what the value of public service is. And in terms of flood funding, we will do what's right. And it isn't our responsibility, but we are doing what's right. So when Trowell residents are worried about the implications of the boundary book and flooding on Trowell Moor, what did I say? Well, I promised Councillor Pringle that I'd fund a feasibility study. It's not our responsibility. Is that right, Don? It's right, isn't it? We're going to fund a feasibility study from our. Well, it's not our responsibility, but we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And we're going to support the residents there, and we're going to work with the lead local flood authorities to fund a feasibility study into understanding the problem better and seeing what solutions we can come up with. That's what the budget's all about. It's about a strategy. It's about doing the right thing. It's about serving the people of our communities. It's about working with other councillors who we might not see eye to eye on a lot of issues about, but when you've got a valid point, we'll talk to you and try and help. And that's what we're doing. So I'm really pleased and I'm proud, Mr. Mayor, to submit this budget to you, and I hope as many people as possible can see their way to support it. Maybe even Councillor Owen will give Councillor Pringle dispensation to support us this time around.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Marshall. This item requires a recorded vote, so you'll be called out in alphabetical order. Thank you.
Councillor Bagshaw. Councillor Bales. Councillor Ball. Councillor Brown. Councillor Bullock.
4.
Councillor Bunn. Councillor Camplin. Councillor Chris Carr.
4.
Councillor Steve Carr.
4.
Councillor Cooper.
4.
Councillor Cullen.
4.
Councillor Danheimer.
4.
Councillor Facio. 4. Councillor Harlow.
4.
Councillor Jeremiah.
4.
Councillor Kingdon.
Abstain.
Councillor Land.
Abstain.
Councillor Donna McRae. 4. Councillor Richard McRae.
4.
Councillor Marsh.
4.
Councillor Marshall.
4.
Councillor McGrath.
4.
Councillor Me.
4.
Councillor Jill Owen.
Abstain.
Councillor Philip Owen.
Abstain.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
Abstain.
Councillor Dulovich.
4.
Councillor Skinner. Councillor Pauline Smith.
4.
Councillor Vanessa Smith.
4.
Councillor Stockwell.
Abstain.
Councillor Tideswell.
4.
Councillor Watts.
Abstain.
Councillor Webb.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor Winfield.
4.
Councillor Woodhead.
4.
Thank you.
Members, just to announce, just announce the results of the recorded vote. 429 against nil, abstention 9. Thank you.
Get that right, and have a recap.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So, so that item was carried. So before we move on to item 9, urgent business, I'm going to suggest a short recess for
Comfort break. If
yeah,
we just
comfort break.
agree there.
Because the papers need to be, and I need to speak to Councillor Carr as well. So if is that agreed? We need to go to yeah, okay.
How long do you make? 10 minutes?
10, yeah, 5. We'll come
5.
back at 5 past.
5,
So that's
yeah.
about 6 minutes. 5 past. Okay. Can I call everybody to order, please? I can ask you all to take your seats and we'll proceed with the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, we've received a motion submitted under urgent business from Councillor Gabrielle Bunn. Before we do, I'm going to invite Councillor Carr to clarify the situation.
Just to clarify the situation that I raised earlier, it would appear that we made inquiries about putting forward an emergency motion, and I apologise for any misunderstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. So before we proceed, members... Oh, sorry, Councillor Owen.
Mr Mayor, a member of my group asked if they could put forward a motion tonight and were advised that they couldn't put one forward until the meeting in July. Well, it wouldn't have mattered because she's in Madrid at the moment, so it would have fallen anyway, but that's another story. It's the principle behind it. We've got an absurd situation where we as, well, any member is unable to put forward a motion to this council for 6 months on this basis. We have a meeting, I think, in January, and then the next then we have a budget meeting where we shouldn't be putting motions forward, and then we have the annual council meeting where we shouldn't be putting motions forward, and the next proper meeting where we get reports and everything and we can put motions forward is in July. That's a period of 6 months. It makes reform look democratic, quite frankly.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall.
I was going to say, go on.
Go on, I'll give way to Councillor Carr then.
As Chair of Governance and Audit, I can confirm that we are going through a review of the Constitution at the moment. This is one of the things that we've looked at, and it's something that will be made a lot clearer, and it will be a lot easier for people to put motions through. And I do appreciate, Councillor Owen, that this has been a problem in the past, but we are determined that we're going to put that right, and that's an all-party.
Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, he might be frustrated, but constitutionally, you can stand up at any time and propose a motion, Philip. You can. Is that true?
Not that I'm aware. We may
You don't know that. Well, you need to. You can stand up. You do not need officer permission. Constitutionally, you can stand up, and if the meeting votes for it, you can have it. You have got the right to do that. But an officer can't prevent you from doing that. Now, whether you do that or not, it's different. But as Councillor Carr says, there will be ample review, and if it isn't clear enough for you now, it might be clear in the future.
Democratic services say that it's outside the Constitution to bring one forward and you can't until July, then that's it. I'm not going to debate the matter any further.
Right, so, sorry, the motion officer.
I was just going to make a point of clarification that asking for a motion on notice, which I'm not aware of the details of the matter that Councillor Owen has spoken about, is different to an item that's been raised as an urgent business, and that is what we are considering today. So just for clarity, it is a motion on an urgent item.
Right, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as we heard, there is a review under process anyway. But before we proceed, members need to vote as to whether they consider the business to meet the urgency criteria, which is before you. If you vote that it meets the criteria, we shall proceed to debate the motion. If you vote that it does not meet the criteria, it will be considered at the next ordinary council meeting. So let's vote on whether to debate the motion. All those in favour? Okay. Against?
It's just an abuse of Constitution.
Abstain. You got that? Any abstentions?
6 abstentions, so it's carried.
Yeah, so that's carried. So, Councillor Bunn, would you like to propose a motion?
Yes, I'd like I'd like to propose the motion. Do I speak now, or does it need to be seconded first?
You speak now, yeah.
Just before I do, I would like to point out that, again, as has been pointed out, this is in the Constitution, and it does lay out there about the fact that you can bring emergency motions to the budget meeting. It was actually a change that was made 2 years ago, I think at the suggestion of either Steve or Barbara Carr. It went through the process and was ratified by this council. That is the process. It is in the Constitution. If you read the Constitution, you can see that and you can do the same. There is no irregularity in bringing this forward. There is no unfairness. That is the process. Right, so on to the motion itself. We've heard a lot today about some of the issues that are Broxtowe Council's responsibility and how our budget that we've laid out tonight and has been approved by this council aims to fix those. The subject of this motion is something that sits outside our control as borough councillors, something that is the responsibility of reform at the county council, and that is the appalling state of roads throughout Broxtowe and the lack of on-street parking enforcement as well that further exacerbates that problem, creating a substantial risk to health and Broxtowe residents' health and safety. And I think everyone here will agree one of the biggest issues that comes into our inboxes and that we hear about from residents on the doorstep. It's a fairly long motion here before you today, but a timely and important one, as I hope you'll agree. And the context here is important, which is why I've laid it out for you, particularly as I knew this would be an emergency motion, so you wouldn't have much time to do research before the meeting, because that's how these work. For many years, the East Midlands and Nottinghamshire in particular have struggled due to a lack of local government funding. It's something we've talked about many times, we've talked about quite a lot of times this evening, and we've talked about in our communities. For too long, action has been urgently needed but impossible to fund. That has changed. While the government's Fairer Funding Review continued to ignore and underfund the vital contributions of district councils, such as Broxtowe, as we discussed earlier, it has significantly increased the budget in Nottinghamshire County Council and in the city. I'm pleased to see this because it is sorely needed. It's needed for our social care, it's needed for our schools, and it's needed for our roads. The leader of the county council has been making some big claims on social media recently about increased investment on our roads over the next 3 years, about making efficiencies that enable that to happen. This motion exposes the reality. Despite the budget increasing by over 30%, from around 660,000 to 880,000, million, thank you. It's written as thousands of thousands, and I always mispronounce that. And by raising council tax by over £75 per household, 15 times the increase that Broxtowe is doing, the county council budget papers show that reform is reducing the spend on road maintenance this year compared to last year, making it less than the amount spent by the previous set by the previous Conservative administration. My question here is, do they not listen to their residents? Every councillor in this room knows that roads are our #1 complaint. And here at Broxtowe, we don't even have responsibility for them. I can only imagine how many emails the actual county councillors, several of whom do sit in this room, hear on a daily basis. The second thing I hear about at the moment is dangerous parking. So in Waverley Avenue in my ward, but also elsewhere across the borough, there's parking on double yellow lines, there's parking on junctions, there's parking across pavements so that pushchairs and wheelchairs can't get past. And it also damages those pavements as well, making things more dangerous for the people that do have to use them. This isn't just about the roads, it's also about that wider highways infrastructure. Again, this is a county council responsibility, and again, it is one that they refuse to take ownership of. So my question is, why is the county council not listening? They need to fix our roads, they need to fix our pavements, and they need to meet their obligations around on-street parking. These three things are essential to ensure resident safety, and they continue to ignore them. That's why I'm bringing this motion forward tonight, because I want to do all in my power to represent my residents and the people of Broxtowe. And I hope you will all support me in calling on reform and the county council to step up, to do their job, and to fix the crisis with our roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimm. Do we have the seconder? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. Happy to send. I'll speak now if that's all right, because I'm going to have to disappear after it. Okay. Yes, absolutely right, Councillor Bullen. And there's more, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to let you into some insights of the reform-led county council. Throughout their budget, they've come up with this thing: we're going to do things the reform way. You remember that, Helen, last week? And then, of course, we cottoned on to that you're going to mess things up the reform way, and that, that's going to be continuing coming forward. Every year, either under Labour or Conservative administrations at County Hall, a sum of money was put aside for what they called winter resilience. which was determined outside of the budget process and actually was looked at what the potential forecast, what the state of the roads was at any one particular time. When the Conservatives were last in power, in the winter 24-25, they put £5 million to one side for winter resilience. Now, winter resilience means that you just don't go along, chuck a load of tarmac in it and go like that. You actually do it properly and you seal it so it doesn't come back up again, because in the winter that's what happens, as we can see now. Under the Reform UK leadership, and I use that phrase loosely, zero. No money was put aside for winter resilience this winter. Not a penny, not a dime, not a cent, zero. So now they're surprised that the roads are in a terrible state. We heard it from the portfolio holder for economic development and asset management this morning at the meeting that Councillor Cullen. He doesn't know what his job is, and he doesn't know his job. And it would appear that all of the portfolio holders for Reform don't know what they're doing and don't know what their job is either. And then there's the mysterious £1 million reduction in the fee to VIA to carry out this work. Well, Mr. Mayor, VIA stated that they needed an extra £1.2 million for a human resource, because you can't mend roads if you've not got the people to do it, to put the roads right back to the pre-winter levels of repair, which weren't brilliant, but better than they are now. The portfolio holder, Bert, said you can have 200,000 of that, and the rest you will have to find from savings and efficiencies. Well, Councillor Marsh hit on that earlier. Savings and efficiencies is code words for cuts. So not only are they putting less money into getting the roads right, they're actually not providing via what they've asked for to have the personnel to do it. The Reform way. We all know what that means, Mr. Mayor. I've just said it's cuts. They are cutting the ability of VIA to sort out Reform's winter mess and blaming them for it as well, because they're very good at that. Mr. Mayor, Reform lied to Broxtowe residents. They promised to sort out the potholes. They've got worse. They promised to freeze or reduce council tax. They've put it up above the rate of inflation. I haven't seen any boats on Cookie's Pond or the River Trent, but that's another matter. They promised to get rid of them, but we don't seem to have that problem in Broxtowe anyway. Reform are not your friends. That's what we should be saying. Reform are not your friends. And the fact that they've sacrificed Broxtowe under the local government reform shows that Reform are not Broxtowe's friends either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carwood. Anybody else? Councillor Watts first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be very quick because I fully support this motion. I just want to add one thing that doesn't appear in the report that is worth noting. When one looks at the proposals that Reform have put forward for road repairs, 31% of their budget is going to Newark and Sherwood, 8% is coming to Broxtowe. Well, I was just going to ask that question. Yeah. This is obviously the Reform way. Yeah. Stuff Broxtowe. That's the Reform way. More than happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Danheimer.
Thank you, Mick. I only have a few other points which have been picked up, so I'll try and get through. I'd like to thank Councillor Bunn for a good motion. As people have said, there's no councillors in this room who haven't had phone calls, conversations with residents about potholes. Every year, Broxtowe is sick of potholes, sick of filling in online forms, no response, sick of having to run the gauntlet of potholes every day just to get to work, sick of flat tyres, damaged shock absorbers, and sick of no one listening. So what Reform County Council done? They called an emergency meeting last year. I think it's now on the 6th of March. So their urgency is a little bit better. They paid some contractors who took a couple of buckets of tarmac in a hole and stamp it down, as Councillor Carr mentioned earlier, very much so. Better still. So they bought 2 pothole machines, £400,000. But the previous administration and VIA, East Midlands, trialled them and found they struggled on the narrow residential roads. Caused operation delays, led to damage to curbs, were insufficient in winter months. Productivity was found to be no better than existing methods, which deliver similar results at a much lower cost. Either way, they're a quick fix and not a solution. We all know this is a national problem and we need proper thought out plan that starts yesterday. It would be great if the County Council could actually publish a plan on which roads and when they will be fixed properly, I'd like to say. The other part is about parking and things. I recently had a concerned resident contact me with photos of somebody parking on a corner near a bus stop, near shops, on the pavement leading towards a park. So quite a dangerous place. They've reported it, but no response. So I contacted the council. They told me it wasn't them. It was the county council. So I contacted the county council. Their response for their responsibility, oh no, it's down to the police's responsibility. I finally got it sorted out. But what we need from the county council and everybody, is a clear path the residents can follow if they see something and not just be shoved onto the next person. But I'm more than happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dan Hartley. Councillor Udulubi.
Again, I shall be brief. It's a very important issue, as we all know, and boy, hasn't the county council gone downhill since Philip got not voted back. Philip, it's gone downhill since you're no longer there. It really has. I'm just trying my best.
You felt bad about saying it earlier, Philip.
I'm trying my
You felt
best.
bad.
I'm trying my best to be conciliatory. But Mr. Mayor, everything that's been said tonight is quite correct. Potholes and roads are in an absolute disgraceful, dangerous state of affairs. They are a health and a hazard to health and safety. Such is the importance attached to this motion tonight. I call for a recorded vote and ask that all members clearly show their support for this motion and send the County Council a very clear message.
Thank you, Councillor Udulubi. I'll go next to Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as a county councillor, I've had a couple of meetings with the local highways manager. I've raised some of the worst roads that people have raised with me. I've spoken to her about the potholes, and I've been told that the plan of which roads are going to be fixed yet is not yet been released, even though it should have been. So we're none the wiser as to which roads are going to be fixed or when. In preparation for last week's County Council budget meeting, I asked the team of the East Midlands Mayor about the money that's been allocated to Nottinghamshire County Council to fix potholes. So I've been told that since Claire Ward was elected, Nottinghamshire County Council has had more than £15 million per year extra just to fix potholes. In total, in 25-26, it had £44.7 million to fix potholes from both the government and the mayor. And for 26-27, that's gone up to £46.9 million. You wouldn't know it from looking at the budget. It's very, very unclear where that's going to be spent. And I'd welcome any clarity, really, as to how they're spending that and where. So I do support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Facio. Councillor Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, like Councillor Carr, who's now gone, and Councillor Fascio, obviously I'm a county councillor. And since being elected in May, I've become quite an expert on potholes and how to measure them and how to get the patch fixed quickly and all sorts of things like that. The issue of potholes is extremely serious. In the last year, twice I have had to pay Sandy Acre Garage, my favourite garage, £700 to fix my suspension. And it's not because I drive too fast over potholes. It's because in my ward there are some very deep potholes just on blind spots where you can't see them coming and they pop up from nowhere. It's got worse and worse and worse. The Reform County councillors like to tell us that the general public don't like politics. They don't like us politicians talking politics. They tell us they're just ordinary members of the public and not politicians. And the general public don't like politics. Well, I tell you, the general public of Beeston Central and Rylands are fuming about the potholes. They're angry about parking on double yellow lines and corners, and they understand that it's reform that are doing nothing about it, and we're trying our level best. So I support this motion. It will help me in my other chamber, and Broxtowe residents deserve better.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Philip Owen.
Mr. Mayor, I don't, and I said this out of the meeting, I don't think this is really the correct use of urgency powers and urgency business, but it's here now, and so we've got to make a decision, and I can see no reason looking at the actual resolution why we shouldn't support it. But I'm delighted that almost universally across the chamber, people are recognising that things are always better under the Conservatives. It really has been a revelation that people have been saying that tonight, and I am delighted because that's true. They are. Things are always better when the Conservatives are running things. This is not really an appropriate forum to be debating this. The appropriate forum is the County Council. I can well understand the desire, the wish to attack reform. But as I always say, you don't need to. They do it themselves. People are aware of their incompetence. They don't need any help in undermining their position and showing how incompetent they are. The issue of potholes has been around for many, many years. I remember having discussions, quite heated discussions at times, with my former leader, Councillor Cutts, at County Hall, saying we've got to get a grip on this because it's going to cost us the election. And we did start to get a grip on it. Things weren't perfect, I accept that, but the roads were so much better. I have never seen the roads in such an appalling state as they are. We've had some patches put on Woodhouse Way. I know there have been some wonderful patching on the main road in Kimberley. You could play billiards on it now, couldn't you? It's so wonderful. Instead of driving on the opposite side of the road, you can now bounce up and down as you go down. There is incompetence throughout. And whilst I share the sentiments of this motion, this really isn't the forum to debate it. You've got to put your faith, your trust in your county councillors. Now, unfortunately, I can't in mine, but that's another story. And as far as parking is concerned, the county council are responsible when it comes to double yellow lines. And you can report it through to the parking enforcement team there, and they are usually quite good. But of course, they can't be everywhere all the time. I still do, because I remember the email address of the chap in charge of parking enforcement, and very occasionally I will email him and report things to him. But parking on pavements is not the responsibility of the county council. Obstruction of the pavement is a police matter. Oh, it is. I know you're shaking your head. I know they like to try and absolve themselves of all responsibility for it. They even produced me a sheet with all the reasons why they wouldn't do anything about it. I mean, if they put as much effort into prosecuting obstructive parking as they did into giving me reasons why they shouldn't, things would improve dramatically. But the county council don't have the powers at the moment. I believe the government are looking at introducing options for councils, whether that will be upper tier county councils or district councils, to designate streets where parking on the pavement is prohibited. I think that is now the case in Scotland. It's been the case for years in London, and councils can enforce it. But in fairness to the county council on and it's not very often these days I say that, but in fairness to the county council, as far as on pavement parking, I don't think they have the powers to do it. It is a police matter, and as ever, the police don't want to know. We will support this because there's nothing particularly contentious or that we would object to, at least in the resolution itself. In the preamble, there are things that we may not agree with.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors. When they said we were going to have this debate, I did say to our leader, Philip, I hope you don't mind, but I'm leaving at 9:30, just gone. The first reason is it's the rocky road to Orsworth, and the second reason is that I don't like driving in the dark anymore. And so therefore it's very difficult to be driving your car looking for potholes so you don't drive into them. And they are, I agree with what everybody says, it is terrible. And at the moment going up the lane in Orsworth, well, it's like going to Alton Towers actually, the cars like this. Anyway, all I'm going to say to you is I'm going to support you, the motion, and is it all right if I go now, please?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so
Well, hurry up then and I'll vote with you.
I don't think anybody else wishes to speak. So before we move to the vote, we've had a call for a recorded vote, so I need a seconder for that. Councillor
Second that.
Great. So then can I have a show of hands for a recorded vote? Yeah, that's carried. That's more than enough. So in that case, your name will be read out alphabetically.
Councillor Bagshaw. Councillor Bagshaw.
Yeah, I hear. What's the resolution for?
Are you in favour of the or against the motion again regarding potholes?
Councillor Bales. Councillor Ball.
4.
5. Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Bullock.
4.
Councillor Bunn. 4. Councillor Camplin. 4. Councillor Chris Carp.
4.
Councillor Cooper.
4.
Councillor Cullen.
4.
Councillor Danheimer.
4.
Councillor Facio. 4. Councillor Harlow. 4. Councillor Jeremiah.
4.
Councillor Kingdon.
4.
Councillor Land.
4.
Councillor Donna McRae. 4. Councillor Richard McRae.
4.
Councillor Marsh.
4.
Councillor Marshall.
4.
Councillor McGrath.
4.
Councillor Me.
4.
Councillor Jill Owen.
4.
Councillor Philip Owen.
4.
Councillor Patterson. 4. Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Dulovich. 4. Councillor Skinner.
4.
Councillor Pauline Smith. 4. Councillor Vanessa Smith. 4. Councillor Stockwell.
4.
Councillor Tideswell.
4.
Councillor Watts.
4.
Councillor Webb. 4. Councillor Williamson. Councillor Winfield. And Councillor Woodhead. 4. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, everyone. That was carried unanimously. So I'll declare the meeting closed at 21:37.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Mr. Mayor. You're going out of there. So just one left. Yeah, last one. You're doing the mayor one.
Yeah, well,
you can hand it over, don't you?
Yeah, just do a few minutes to introduce the new mayor and the new mayor. Yeah, just say a few words.
Yeah.
And the new mayor to take
You getting the good things to
You just get good at it, and then the movie puts wells there. That's not
They really shouldn't
Shall I tell them to
bumpy at times, but you didn't.
No, I think tonight it was quite a bit quicker than I thought.
Yeah, the budget one, yeah.
I was expecting perhaps another small amendment.
Oh, in the budget, yeah. Yeah, for the groups, yeah, I see that. No, well done. I'll see a journey on, yeah.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going.
You say you're going to be calling. Yeah.
No, we will do, yeah, I'm going to fetch it round, yeah. Yeah, I'll just bring it round.
You're still talking with you.
You stop the Ken. We'll stop the Ken. We'll stop the Ken. Just a little concerned.
Yeah, we'll take him back. You just get my papers together. Yeah. Get your papers together.
Let's have a word with Councillor Owen about his comments, and then I can leave too. Just because I think they feel it, and I'm so pleased that everybody else, because I can't jump straight in, that everyone picked up on it. Because once they let that creep in, that behaviour continues.
No, I know, we don't want that sort of behaviour.
You know, honestly, I was so impressed with
Yeah.
the members.
Yeah, everybody else
corrected
is.
that, yeah. I'll just have my final.
Yeah. Oh, that's it then. Oh, you do, that's it, that's one.